This is Keith Helwig from Cops Corrections Videos. I'd like to talk about a couple of use of force incidents lately, which have really bothered me. Now, what I'm about to say is probably going to piss off a few people, but I'm going to tell it the way I see it. Not too long ago, a young officer was sentenced to 10 years in prison for entering the wrong apartment and shooting an unarmed man who lived in that apartment. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm sitting at home and someone comes walking in my front door in the middle of the night and I approach them, I'm going to be aggressive. I'm not going to be very happy about it. And I'm probably going to tell them to get the F out of my house. Of course, I'm probably going to have a gun in my hand. And had it been that officer, I would undoubtedly be dead. Or else I would have shot them first, under the castle protection. But the fact that this officer, went into the wrong apartment and shot an unarmed black man, whether black man, white man, doesn't matter. Shot an unarmed man is irrelevant. What's relevant is that she shot the person, that she killed the person. She deserves to be in prison for what she did. Now, just a couple days ago, another officer was called to investigate a suspicious person. He was called by a neighbor who said they saw some movement in an apartment. He was outside of the apartment. The woman that lived in the apartment was inside, evidently playing video games with her children or whatever. And she saw a man outside of the window, never identified himself, started yelling at her, "Show me your hands," whatever. I don't know. I wasn't there. Maybe I shouldn't be second guessing him. But when she didn't show her hands, he shot her. Now, there's reports that there was a gun in the house. Well, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of guns in my house, but does that give somebody the right to come and shoot me through the window because I don't show them my hands when I don't know who they are? I'm sorry, but incidents like this with these two officers degrade every officer out there. It makes the public suspicious of every officer out there. People don't want to hear it. Officers made mistakes. Should these two be punished? Most definitely. Most definitely. I saw another incident that occurred in a correctional facility where an inmate attacked, I don't know whether it was a deputy or a state correctional officer or whatever. This inmate had a walker and he tried to strike the deputy, and the deputy used force. Well, the deputy, in my opinion, used a proper amount of force. I worked in an institution which had a 50-bed infirmary in it, and just because somebody has a walker, or just because somebody's in an infirmary, doesn't mean they can't hurt you. Now, I saw that incident, and that officer should still have his job. That inmate should have been charged with assault. The administration at that institution should have had the balls to stand up for their officer. They didn't, and the officer quit. As officers, whether correctional officers, whether police officers, probation and parole officers, we have to make instantaneous split decisions. Now, with the individual who shot the unarmed woman through the window, he made an instantaneous decision. It was the wrong decision. Now, people are going to say, well, what if she'd have come up with a gun? What if? Well, the what ifs don't matter because she's dead. What if she'd have complied and showed her hands? Okay, she might have been okay. She probably would have been okay. But what if that had not been a police officer outside of her house? She didn't know that because he never identified himself. When we go through the police academy and we learn use of force tactics, one of the first things you do is you identify yourself as a police officer. Then you identify the threat, and then you take appropriate action to that threat. Is it appropriate action to shoot through a window, pardon me, in an apparently darkened apartment because somebody doesn't show their hands after you, an unidentified individual outside, starts yelling at them? What was reasonable? Was that a reasonable amount of force? Now, I don't know what the officer's training was. Perhaps he was a great officer. Perhaps he'd been working too long. But the sad fact is somebody's dead. The sad fact is it's an unarmed person. Now, some people are going to try to make a racial issue of it and I'm just calling pure bullshit on that one. The same as in the Amanda Geiger situation. I think it's pure baloney that could be made into a racial incident. Is it a lack of training? Is it a lack of experience? We all have times in our careers where we're afraid. I've been in situations where I've had to enter into a building with my gun drawn, and to say that I wasn't scared, I'd be lying. I've had to clear buildings in the middle of the night by myself because my backup was 20 minutes away. Was I scared? Oh yeah, I was scared to death. But does that mean that if somebody had come around the corner, that I would have simply shot them? No, I wouldn't have. I know for a fact I wouldn't, because I've been in that situation where I've entered an apartment with a burglar in it, and the burglar came running around the corner. All right, we yelled at him to get on the ground. He got on the ground. Could I have shot him? No, I couldn't have shot him. Well, I can't say I couldn't have. Should I have shot him? No, I shouldn't have shot him. He didn't present an immediate threat. He ran around the corner because he tried going out the back door and saw another officer out there, so he decided to come back my way, which really didn't work out too well for him. As officers, whether in corrections, probation, parole, police work, whatever, use the amount of force necessary to control the situation. Use the amount of force necessary to stop the threat. Make sure the threat exists. I don't live in an urban combat area. I don't work in an urban combat area. But you need to have situational awareness no matter where you work. Years ago, when I went to Police Week for the first time, it was 10 years ago, I met two officers from New York City. Now, they'd walked a beat in New York City since then. One is promoted to detective, and the other became a New York State trooper. But they were telling me people throwing flaming garbage cans from the roofs at them, responding to shots called, things like that. They asked me where I worked, and I told them the name of the small town I worked in at that time, and they were amazed. And when I told them my backup was 15 minutes away, they told me I was crazy to work there. Well, I told them they were crazy, but then they reminded me that their backup was 30 seconds away. You've got to be aware of the threats around you. You've got to use the appropriate amount of force to determine what you need to do with those threats. It seems to be too easy for police officers these days to simply shoot first and ask questions later. Now, in some large urban areas, I guess I can almost understand why they react the way they react. However, you need to react to your training. 90% of the people in the public aren't going to hurt you. You've got to act as though every one of those other people are part of the 10% that are going to hurt you. You've got to have situational awareness to see if a threat does exist. And if the threat does exist, take the appropriate action. The appropriate action is not shooting someone through a window because they did not show you their hands. I certainly hope that nobody who listens to my channel ever is involved in a deadly shooting incident. And if they are, I hope it's appropriate. Do what you need to do to go home at the end of each shift. But do what's right. Until next time, this is Keith Helwig. Stay safe and watch your back.